All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Thursday, July 20th. Fuck it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, Pat Clayton. I am live from San Diego Comic-Con right now. I am in a hotel on the dime of the company, of course, of
Yeah,
course.
gotta.
And I am here in San Diego's beautiful Gaslamp District, which, if anyone knows San Diego, this is the heart and soul, the cultural center of San Diego, the coolest place here. It's like the West Village of San Diego. This is the cool part. This is where everything happens. Very sleek, very cool. So, of course, that is where I have to be. And wannabe intern Christopher, we haven't touched base yet, but he is also on site here at Comic Con. So I think tomorrow we are going to hit the convention floor and we are going to let the wannabe boys, wannabe girls, wannabe people
People.
get a glimpse of us because the actors are not here. The
No.
actresses are not here. The big celebs, well, the big celebs are here now because myself and wannabe intern Christopher are at San Diego Comic Con. So
Yes. I mean, yes, absolutely. And I'm sure you've been mobbed by fans, but we just don't have time to talk about it
no,
because it's Barbie and Barbieheimer. What is it?
it is
Barbenheimer? Is that what the kids say?
Barbenheimer. This is
Yeah.
Barbenheimer weekend, the opening weekend of Greta Gerwig's Barbie and Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. So, I mean, right off the bat, is this the luckiest thing that could have happened to Christopher Nolan that Warner Brothers, as an FU, because he left Warner Brothers, so they put Barbie against his big first film with Universal. They opened Barbie right against him, and that was a shot at Nolan. But as we see how this is playing out and how the Barbenheimer meme is happening, and I think is lifting Oppenheimer to a height it wouldn't have gotten to without Barbie. So right off the bat, is Barbenheimer the best thing that could have happened to Christopher Nolan?
Absolutely. And Pat, you are a little hot. Your mic's a little hot. I
A
get
little
it
hot. I'm
just
coming in hot.
because this is a hot weekend. So, of course, you're coming in hot. We're all coming in hot. I do agree. I mean, Barbie's coming in hot, very hot.
Yes.
Oppenheimer's coming in surprisingly hot. Yes, to answer your question, absolutely. Nobody's talking about this 3 hour, partially black and white
Mm-hmm.
film about an atomic bomb
Yeah.
if it comes out against Mutant Madness, Teenage
Right.
Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, if it comes out in November, if it comes out during award season, yeah, people will go see it, but it's not going to be on the tip of everybody's tongue the way this is. I
Right.
mean, obviously, I'm a mushmouth, so I couldn't say Barbenheimer, but most people are able to say it, and they're not saying it; they're tweeting it.
Right.
You
Right.
know, they're
But
they're
it
hashtagging it. So yes, absolutely. I mean, this guy is a guy who everybody thought, "Oh, he landed in a pile of shit and he found a diamond in it." I mean, this
mm-hmm.
guy's got a horseshoe up his tuchus, if
Yes.
anything.
Yes. Yeah. And, I had someone reach out to me just today. Someone reached out to me just today and asked me the question, is Barbenheimer real? Is this Barbenheimer thing real? That's what this
Okay.
person wanted to know. And, I think that person uh I don't know if they meant, are the memes actually real? Or are they walking talking entities that I can hang out with? I don't know if that's what they meant, but I think they probably meant, are people actually gonna go see both movies? Because that is
Mhm.
what Barbenheimer is about, is the fact that there are people out there saying that they will see both of these movies on the same day on opening weekend. And according to the numbers we're seeing out there, I mean, I've seen numbers saying that there's upwards of 200,000 tickets that have been sold as combo packs
That's
to
the
see
number,
both
yeah.
these movies. And,
National
we
Association of Theater Owners is projecting that more than 200,000 moviegoers will do same-day viewings of Barbie and Oppenheimer at theaters across North America,
wow. And
according to the Wrap.
I mean, this is kind of the wave of the future because this is a version of what we saw, and we're not going to talk about Sound of Freedom a lot on this episode or at all, but the Angel Studios, ticket counter thing, gamifying the act of buying a ticket, and that's kind of what Barbenheimer is. And I think there's a lot of people who are buying both tickets because that's the thing to do, but the movie they really want to see is Barbie, and they're buying an Oppenheimer ticket for the experience of saying they did Barbenheimer, you know?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I think a positive thing about this
Mhm.
is that these movies are not being pitted against each
No,
other in
no.
a way. They're being packaged together as an experience, as a grueling experience, right? And
Yes.
I'm not saying grueling in a bad way because, of course, pressure creates diamonds. It is, like I said before, I did the Barbenheimer challenge. I
Mhm.
sat through both. I spent 6 hours in a theater seat. I brought my
Right.
inflatable donut, right?
Yes,
That
yes.
that is something that people are gonna be able to take pictures of and regale their friends with on Instagram stories or TikToks or what
Right.
have you on
Sh
threads, whatever they're calling threads. What are I guess they're called threads on threads.
I think it's threads, yeah,
Yeah.
and they could show pictures next week of their Barbenheimer hemorrhoid, their
Mhm.
Barbenhemorrhoid,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they could say, "This is the hemorrhoid, this is the Barbenhemorrhoid that I got from seeing Barbenheimer
yeah.
last week," and people love that kinda stuff. People love
They do.
showing off. Does it if next week the internet is flooded with hemorrhoid pictures, that's only gonna juice the second week numbers for Barbenheimer.
Yeah. And I think that is what's coming out of this that is great for theatrical is that this doesn't feel divisive, it feels
Yes.
joyful. Now, there's
Yes.
corner of the internet that is gonna make everything divisive and non-joyful,
They
but
don't matter this weekend.
they don't matter this weekend. They
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 don't
never
matter.
really matter, but they
Right.
absolutely don't matter this weekend.
Yes. Yes. And a couple of months ago, I think that the Barbie versus Oppenheimer thing was the way it was going. It was all about which is gonna make more money, which one are people gonna rather see, and that has definitely turned, I think, whoever the artists were that put together those initial Barbenheimer arts where Barbie's there watching the atomic bomb explosion and Oppenheimer sitting in the pink Cadillac. And I think that did a lot to turn this from a competition into a celebration. And that, like you said, that is key. The fact that this is a celebration and it's about doing both rather than picking one is
A
why this is going to be the biggest box office weekend in years,
and
possibly.
it's funny how comically different these films are and these filmmakers are, where you're hearing behind the scenes stuff about how Greta Gerwig was making every Friday pink or something. There was a
Yes.
pink day on the shoot, and everybody wear pink and all that. And then you're hearing stories about on Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy only ate 1 almond a day to
Right.
get skinny and skeletal. The somberness, the sullenness of this
Right.
movie is almost comical juxtaposed against this bright pink movie, and people are looking at that and they're laughing, not derisively, but it's giving people this sort of elation, this weird sort of giggle fit that is positive. And that's kind of where I'm at with this whole thing, where I was very low on Barbie, and we've had so, Pat, how long have we known each other? It's
It's,
been what,
it's been
12,
about
13 years?
12 or 13 years. We met in 2010. I would say for the first year or so of that, it was not really a friendship. It was more of a fandom in one direction. And then it turned into a friendship probably a year or two later. So, yes, it's been a while.
And so we've rarely had fights, like actual screaming matches. I can
Very few.
I up until this Barbie movie,
Yes.
I think
Yes.
we have never yelled at each other more, and we've worked on numerous projects together
Yes.
and things like that. We would yell at each other about this
Yeah.
movie.
Yes.
And and
The
and
closest we ever came to blows was over Barbie,
Mhm.
over talking about the opening weekend of the Barbie movie off mic. We've
Off
never
mic.
captured one of these on mic. I think it would have been some of these Barbie mints, these arguments that we've
Yeah.
had would have, I think, when the listeners love when we mix it up on air, but it would have been too much for them to handle. I mean, we're
Mhm.
talking chairs thrown, furniture knocked over. If people were in the vicinity of our argument, they would have run away scared because they would have thought that a massacre was about to happen. That is how bad these off mic arguments got about Barbie.
Well,
And it came from a place of you were very low on
I was
Barbie. You're
very
very
low
low
on
on Barbie. And
Barbie. And you know what? It's
yeah.
just because I was really did not I didn't the marketing didn't click with me
Mm-hmm.
in the way that I thought it should click. And I was saying this looks like Josie and the Pussycats with its
Yes.
meta-ness. It's a Brady Bunch movie. It's a Scooby-Doo movie, like
Right.
those sort of things. And I was looking at that and I wasn't looking at the overwhelming just love for Barbie as a thing.
Right.
Just as
Right.
a thing, and this was one of your main defenses, was that everybody knows Barbie and everybody loves Barbie.
Right.
And kids, if they go to this or brought to this by a parent or guardian, are gonna like that it seems a little bit adult for them. They're gonna
Yes.
not necessarily get every joke, but that's fine. Kids like to not get jokes as
Yes.
long as it's in a world that they enjoy. And I'll tell you what, this marketing wore me down. This Ryan
Wow.
Gosling going out there and charming the ever loving heck out of me. I'm not a Margot Robbie fan. She's never been in a hit other than that Suicide Squad movie,
Right.
the
Right.
original Suicide Squad movie, because you tried to give her a solo movie called Birds of Prey and it tanked. And she's never hit in anything else. But man, this could be her Deadpool. This is her like legitimate. She was the female Ryan Reynolds, and now she is going to be Barbie, and that's huge
Yes.
for her. And she
Yeah.
could eat off Barbie forever.
Yes, she was the female Ryan Reynolds, and now she's going to be the female Ryan Reynolds, which is good now because Ryan Reynolds has Deadpool. So
Yes,
now it's good
yes.
to be the female Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, I think that the marketing wearing people down is the story of this movie because uh, even as close as a month ago, the tracking on this was 40 to 60, which
Mhm.
give me this credit. I always said that felt low. I think it was going to go higher. But I mean, even I could say in my most passionate defenses of this Barbie movie, when we were yelling and screaming and throwing chairs, almost pushing each other out of 20-story buildings,
Mhm.
it got bad.
Yeah.
I was not expecting the tracking on this movie is over $100 million opening weekend now. And that
Yeah.
was never a place that I was going to a few months ago. My thought was always this movie could open as high as 80. This movie could make over $200 million domestic when all said and done. We are now looking at an opening weekend where Barbie could possibly hit 200 million opening weekend. It's not going to do that. That's way on the highest end. But to say that it could, in its opening weekend, make almost as much as what I thought would have been a great take for the entire run of
Mhm.
this movie. And I think when Warner Brothers greenlit this movie, I do not think there was a world in which they thought or planned for it to have to hit as high as it's going to hit opening weekend. I
No.
don't think the expectations were ever because the budget for this is reportedly, pre-marketing, but we don't count marketing because every movie has to market. The budget for this is like $100 million plus. This opening weekend is going to make over Barbie's budget in the first weekend.
And in a world where you're seeing these flash movies costing so much money, this indie movie costing so much money, even this Mission Impossible movie costing so much money, to have a movie that's $100 million plus uh, budgeted seems like nothing
Right.
comparatively. And then we're not going to talk about it because we'll talk about it later. But I just read an article about Aquaman 2 that they're doing reshoots and the budget for that thing is going to be sick
It's going
because
to be
they
thick.
are so desperately trying to make that a hit movie because everything else in that universe is failing that they are throwing money, good money after bad over there.
Well, I think what has been clicking about the marketing for Barbie and the anticipation for Barbie is also the way in which they spent this money seems to be on production design and on costuming and on things that happen on a real set. And of course, this is a movie, so I'm sure there's special effects and CGI and all that. But I do think this Barbie excitement is another sign that the superhero worm is turned, and that
Mhm.
people, even though this is a movie about a toy, people want more tangible things on screen. They don't want the superhero cartoony stuff anymore. They want the fact that, oh, they built a giant pink dream house and everything's
Mhm.
pink on this set and the clothes are cool. You know, they're this isn't a superhero movie where it is CGI costumes on top of Paul Rudd could be doing those movies naked. They CGI the Ant-Man costume on top of him. In
Yeah.
this movie, people are excited because Barbie's got a cool pink dress. And sometimes that's what people want.
And I think that is a great point, and something that a lot of movie fans might not even be able to articulate.
Yes.
They might
Yes.
not be thinking about why they don't like these superhero movies anymore. They might not even they might be like, "They just don't connect with me as much as they did," and I don't have time to really think about it. But it's a lot of that is that as much as this Barbie world isn't gonna be real, it'll be realer than the microverse or wherever,
Yes, it'll be
Ant-Man ended
realer
up,
than
quantum
Quantumania.
the
Barbie
quantum
Land will be
realm.
realer than Quantum Realm. So, you mentioned Margot Robbie, and yes, she hasn't had a starring role in a movie that's been a giant hit. Obviously, she's been in Wolf of Wall Street and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and the
Yes.
Suicide Squad movie that was a hit, but the vehicles where she's above the title haven't clicked until now. But I think you got to give her and Ryan Reynolds a lot of credit for this because it is their likability that is a big reason why people got excited about this. You know, there may not be movie stars
Oh, you mean Ryan
like
Gosling?
Ryan Gosling, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah.
She's Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Gosling
He's
is playing Ken. Yes.
yeah.
But I think people liking those two actors to the level that they do is a big reason why the anticipation is so high. They cast
Mhm.
this perfectly. So they got it. They're not Jack Nicholson, huh? They're not
Huh,
Meryl Streep, huh? Or
huh,
Sandra Bullock in the 90s, huh?
huh.
But they are movie stars in the sense that they were cast really well, and they're a big reason why people are excited to see this movie.
Yeah, and, we were talking off mic, and, it all depends on how well this movie does opening weekend, which we think it's gonna do pretty spectacular, and the pre-sales are saying it. I mean, there's really no way this opens lower than 100, even with
Yes.
Warner Brothers calling 75 because they're a little scared to be bold here.
Right. Right.
But from looking on the numbers, you go on the box office Reddit and people do these pre-sale trackings, and there's really no way, unless there's a complete total collapse, that this movie doesn't make at least 100,
Right.
which is
Right.
already going to be a big win.
Yeah, so here are some numbers to look at. I think some benchmarks that we got to look at as we get ready for this Barbie movie. First of all, the biggest 3-day opening weekend of this year of 2023 belongs to the Super Mario Brothers. And remember, that movie opened in April to a 5-day weekend. So it opened to 200 million in a 5-day, but its 3-day was 146 million. So that
Mhm.
is in play here this weekend. Barbie
Absolutely.
could top Super Mario Brothers to become the biggest 3-day weekend of the year so far. And honestly, if Barbie's able to do that and top the Super Mario Brothers, I think there's a very good chance it is the highest grossing opening weekend of the entire year. Because when you
Yep.
look ahead, what are the movies that could theoretically open bigger? I mean, Aquaman 2 in December.
Yeah,
There's
I didn't
not an
see that.
Avatar movie. I mean, the Marvels in November that's not going to do it. So Barbie this weekend could become the highest grossing opening weekend of the year so far and probably end up that way for the entire year. It has to hit 147 to win that title. And I mean, we'll give our official predictions later. I think it's going to do it. I
Yeah,
think it's
I
going
mean,
to do
I'm
it.
I'm there with you too. It has higher pre-sales than any movie since Avatar: The Way of Water, which opened to 134, which I think it's gonna beat.
Wow.
The other thing we're seeing is all these articles about how people who don't go see movies are going to see Barbie.
Wow.
So we
It's an event.
David Heron, I may be saying his name wrong, from the Quorum, was on Matt Bellamy's The Town podcast.
Okay. Okay.
Past guest. I won't say
Yes.
future guest because I don't know if he'll ever come back. But great podcast. But
Mhm.
he was saying that 20% of Barbie's US audiences are people who say they can't remember the last time they went to see a movie in theaters.
Wow. Wow. Now, is that though a sign that this is a very old audience coming here? Because it's not that they haven't been to a movie in a long time. It is just that they are, suffering late stage dementia and they just can't remember, even though they maybe saw a movie last week.
No, I do think you're gonna see older women come to see this movie, absolutely, but it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be almost everybody that's gonna come
Yes.
see this movie. The people like this are the people who, and listen, Pat, we know these people exist. People
Hmm.
who only go see a movie when it's a huge thing to talk about. They don't normally go to see movies. I think that these are young people that just movies going is not their thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, there's a lot of people in this country that don't go see any movies. Maybe the
Hmm.
last movie they saw was on Thanksgiving Day with their family or Christmas Eve or something, a holiday where it's like, what are we going to do? Well, we don't want to stay in the house anymore, so let's go see a movie. That
Hmm.
might be this sort of person. But yeah, you're going to get the nanas, you're going to get the grandpas, but you're also going to get 30 somethings, 20 somethings, 40 somethings that don't go to the theater.
Right, right. Barbenheimer is this summer's Gentle Minions. And Gentle Minions brought in the youngsters, and Barbenheimer is going to bring in the youngsters thanks to Barbie. I mean, the other numbers to look at here is whether this movie will give Greta Gerwig the title of having the highest grossing opening weekend for a film directed by a woman. Looking at that, I mean, the one to beat, I think, is Captain Marvel, because that was co-directed by Anna Boden. The other movies on this list are Frozen 2, co-directed by Jennifer Lee, and you've got Patty Jenkins directing the first Wonder Woman movie, which opened to 100. And it looks like it's about the same number to beat. If Barbie gets to 150,
Mhm.
then Greta Gerwig gets that crown as well as the biggest opening weekend for a movie directed by a female director.
Mhm.
Just double checking that. Captain Marvel's opening weekend in March 2019 was 153. So this movie, Barbie, would have to get to about 154 to also win that distinction. And you know what? I think that's going to happen. Not to give away my prediction here, but I think
Yeah.
that's going to happen. We'll get into it when the number comes in next weekend, but this is just going to be a spectacular win for Greta Gerwig. I mean, this is, and this is, let's not forget, co-written by Noah Baumbach. And
Mhm.
do you think Barbie this weekend will become the highest opening weekend for a film written or co-written by Noah Baumbach? Would you put that prediction out there right now?
Yeah, didn't he am I wrong that he had something to do with some of those animated franchise?
Oh,
Am I wrong?
you are correct, sir. Noah Baumbach is actually a co-screenwriter on Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted,
Where'd that open
and
to?
that movie opened to 60 million. So that is by default the highest grossing opening weekend for a film written or co-written by Noah Baumbach.
Yeah, I think this will beat it easily.
Yeah, I mean his other biggest movies. Margot at the Wedding totaled 1.9 million total in its whole run, so this would be bigger than that. Greenberg got to 4.2 million total, so it looks like Barbie should beat that. Frances Ha got to 4 million. While We Were Young got to 7.5 million. Mrs. America 2.5. These are the domestic totals of Noah Baumbach written films. So yeah,
And
I think Barbie. Okay, Barbie probably opening weekend makes more money than every Noah Baumbach movie's full domestic run combined.
oh, yes, absolutely. And
Yes.
and here's the thing, we were talking about Noah Baumbach, and we both love Noah Baumbach, but
Yes.
the real star here
Yeah.
is Greta.
Of
And
course.
I
Yes.
think I underestimated what a name she is
Yes.
for a certain segment of the public. I mean, we've always loved Greta Gerwig. I mean, we liked her movies, even stuff that she's acted in, stuff that she, was involved in before she became an it director.
Yeah. Top of my
But,
list for sure.
but just talking about the movies she's made, Lady Bird for a time was one of A24's, and still is one of A24's highest grossing films.
Yes, until Uncut Gems beat it. It was the highest grossing A24 film ever at that point.
Little Women made over 100 mil
Yes.
domestic, which is huge. I mean, nothing goes over 100 that is like that in this climate, especially post COVID, but even pre COVID. That was a true achievement.
Yes.
And she's a trusted hand when
Yes.
it comes to films. And that is something that people are gravitating towards. That Barbie, yes, there's a segment of the population that are like, it sucks that a toy movie is going to be her big breakout. But that's just our reality. I think
Yes.
people understand that, and I think people are
Live in the
giving her
real
the
world, people. Live in the
yeah,
real world.
people are giving her the benefit of the doubt to say, well, it might be Barbie, but it's also Greta.
Um, I'm going to throw this out there, Clayton. This is a surprise to you, but I think this opening weekend is going to be big enough to deserve on our next episode divvying up the millions of the opening weekend. We have not divvied up the millions in a long time. We have not had too many movies that have been worth divvying up the millions.
No.
Honestly, if we would have done most of the June releases, we'd be divvying up the losses. Who deserves
Yeah.
credit for how much movie money this movie lost. And we've got a lot of new listeners, probably since the last time we did this segment. A lot of Minifans who've and
Stoolies and
Stoolies
Minifans.
who've joined and become wannabe O boys, wannabe O girls, wannabe O people.
People.
So I'm proposing that whatever the opening weekend number of Barbie is on our next episode, we take that number and we divvy up who deserves credit, how many millions each person or entity deserves out of that opening weekend. So I'm throwing that out there. What do
Absolutely.
you think? Okay.
We got to do it. We got to
We
do
got to
it.
do it. We got to do it. That's going to be huge. So Barbie is going to be gigantic. We'll give our final prediction in a bit and read a couple of listener emails with their predictions. Let's go to Oppenheimer. At the top, I said Oppenheimer is benefiting from the Barbenheimer meme and Barbie raising the tide on the Oppenheimer boat. And I got to say, the tracking for this looks great. And the tracking is basically putting it around the high end of non-Batman Nolan films. It's up there in that 50 to 60 million range that Dunkirk and Inception did.
I believe
Dunkirk did.
Inception is 61, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Inception's
61.2
his
or
biggest
something.
one. He
Oh,
had obviously
62.
Leo. Dunkirk, I think, did what, 53, 54 in its opening weekend.
Dunkirk did 50.5.
Dunkirk did 50, and Interstellar, I'm thinking off the top of my head, did like 38 in its opening weekend.
No, 47.
47. So, I mean, listen, we beat this dead horse back in the COVID days when Nolan wasn't letting drive-in theaters show Tenet. Go back to the classic episodes from 2020, relive that box office year through the BO Boys. We beat Christopher Nolan like a dead horse week after week in regards to how he handled Tenet. But he does have a track record of even non-Batman films that do really well, open in that 40 to 60 million range. And Oppenheimer felt like to me, it wasn't going to be there because it seemed there wasn't a major superstar in the lead role and the subject matter seemed dreary. But here we are opening weekend and the tracking is 50-60 million dollars. So this
Now,
looks like a good weekend for Nolan.
in our summer preview, you called this out as a bomb.
I
You
did.
said
I
this would
did.
bomb.
Yes.
And I feel like it could have been. I mean, not to stick up for you and make excuses for you because I would never do that.
Uh-huh.
But I think what we've been saying is how this all played out and the Barbenheimer situation and the positivity surrounding both of these films, this changed the trajectory of this film.
Yes.
Because if the goodwill wasn't there and the memes weren't there and the promotion wasn't there, you could see a world where Barbie opens to 40 and Oppenheimer opens to 30.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
that's a possibility, but here's what's been going on, and everybody's been listening, is there's been few bright spots this summer. Very few.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we've had movies that have not been dire necessarily in tone, but just dire in their execution.
Right.
They just are old and sad.
Right.
And I think Oppenheimer is sad in a good way. It's supposed to be sad. It's saying it will devastate you. That is the tagline for it. It will
Yes.
devastate you.
Yes.
And that is something that the audience are like, at least I know what I'm getting into. I didn't expect to be devastated watching Indy 5.
Exactly.
I
Yes.
didn't expect to be devastated watching The Flash, and not
Right.
because of any real emotional beats, but because they were crushingly bad movies.
Right.
That's what people want, a movie that is gonna depress them because its artistic aim is to depress you, not because the execution depresses you.
Yes. Yes. And I think the excitement is also both of these movies feel new and fresh. It's the first ever big screen Barbie movie. So yes, it's an IP, but this is not Barbie 7, you
No.
know, and there will be a Barbie 7 someday and everyone will be sick of it, but this is Barbie 1. And it's the first Oppenheimer movie. This is not Oppenheimer Part 2. This is not the third. This is not a trilogy of Oppenheimer movies, or we've seen 10 people play Oppenheimer before. This is the first Oppenheimer movie. So yes, Oppenheimer is an IP, but it's a fresh IP that we haven't gotten before.
And
So
the reason Oppenheimer could do really well this weekend is because it's got a great number of the PLFs. I mean, IMAX is 70 millimeter IMAXs. I mean, this is a movie that it's going to have premium price tickets.
yes,
So
yes,
the only thing that worries me a little bit about Barbie is that its ticket prices are going to be lower
hmm,
than they could be if it had the PLFs to itself. But I'll tell you what, it I think people are just gonna go to regular theaters to see a Barbie movie, and they're
yes,
gonna I think this split is correct at the moment.
hmm,
I'm seeing all the Dolby showings for Barbie are sold out this weekend from what I can see.
yes,
But for
yes,
the theaters that I would wanna go to, those are all sold out. So those premium seats are getting snatched up, but you're seeing almost full theaters in the regular other theaters. So I think that this is a movie that you're going to have 20% of the population who doesn't go see movies who are going to just go to the movies and sit in a ratty seat and not think anything different
right,
because
right.
it's Barbie and they want to see it.
So how are you going to see this, Clayton? How am I going to see this? We've been talking about how this is the biggest box office weekend in years. This is a true event. This is a time where box office is the center of the culture right now. People are talking about box office in places beyond places like such as the BO Boys or Scott Mendelson. This is moved to just all facets of media right now. They're talking about box office. How do you plan on seeing Barbenheimer this weekend?
Well, I probably won't get to see Oppenheimer
Okay.
because all those IMAXs and those premiums are sold out. And I was trying to get a ticket to see at least a Dolby theater playing Barbie, but I don't think that's the case. I think I'm going to have to go early on, like a Friday or Saturday, and just see it in a regular theater
Okay.
and watch it that way, just to see the movie. Not because I would like to experience it in a premium format, and I feel like later on in the summer, a few weeks from now, possibly they'll do something where you can see Barbie in IMAX. And if I like it, I'll see it again in IMAX.
Right.
But I now, just for this show and research purposes, to really get a grasp of, how big this movie could be going forward, not only a big opening, but is it going to have legs? I need to see this movie. So that's how I'll probably see it,
So
is
you'll
I'll
be
just
seeing
have
it
to see it at a conventional screening room.
on a Saturday morning. So
Yeah,
so
it's Saturday or Friday morning.
so then there's a good chance you will be at a very child-heavy screening of the Barbie movie because you'll be seeing it on a Friday or Saturday morning, which I think is going to be a good uh, uh, bit of research for you, is to see how a child-heavy audience reacts to this film. This might
Mhm.
be a situation where it would be good for you to bring a notebook, snap some pics, record some
No
audio.
pics. No, that's the worst thing to possibly do, is take any pictures.
Okay, so my advice to you of taking pictures at a child heavy screening of Barbie, you don't think that's good
So
advice.
so take pictures of a Barbie screening with kids in a theater where the theater room right next to me is showing Sound of Freedom. I don't think that's a great idea. I think you're trying to get me killed. Is it because I have a mustache now, Pat? Is that why you're saying that's something I should do?
I mean, this is another reason why listening to the podcast isn't enough. You have to experience this on multiple platforms. If you are a viewer on YouTube, you will see that Clayton now has a mustache. He is a mustachioed man. So, listen, I'm just throwing that out there that this mustachioed man goes by himself to a early morning kid heavy screening of Barbie, take some pictures, and if people catch wind of it, they start telling their nearby patrons who are going to a Sound of Freedom screening, hey, that guy with the mustache was snapping pictures of kids. You
So
don't think that's a
you
good idea?
No, I think that's a terrible idea, and I think it's a terrible idea.
Okay, I'm just throwing out suggestions for you on how to experience Barbenheimer. I will, of course, be seeing it here in San Diego with a couple of friends of ours who are making the drive up from Los Angeles, and Wannabe intern Christopher will
Yeah.
be joining us, as well as, just throwing this out there, the co-host of another podcast that you and I work on, the host of the Criminal Minds podcast, will also be joining us. So, little plug for
Actually,
that.
it's called Criminal Types. Great
Oh,
plug.
terrible plug by the producer of that show using the wrong name of the show. Criminal Types, of course, is the podcast that I produce and Clayton edits. But the
It's
host of that podcast will be also joining me for Barbie on Friday night.
it's
Yes.
not a Criminal Minds rewatch podcast.
Uh, I'm sure that the reason it's not is because that definitely exists already and is doing huge numbers,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But
Well,
anyway,
but Pat, you're talking about kids,
yeah.
and
Well, I'm
this
talking about
movie
kids in the context of you interacting with kids. But yes, go on.
no, I'm just talking about kids in general here for this movie. And we were talking off mic, and I was saying there's a possibility that for young girls,
Mhm.
this is Batman 1989,
Yes. Yes.
because back in 1989, people were frothing at the mouth about Batman. You could not trip over a kid
Right.
without them having a Batman shirt or the
Yes.
bat signal
Yes.
shaved into the back of their head
Yes.
or
Yes.
them eating Batman cereal. I mean, that
Or them
was
doing the Bartman, which was an offshoot of Batman 89, the Bartman.
oh, well, I mean, maybe if they were dressed in a Batman costume doing the barman, I don't know how that would work, but um I think that this could be that, in
Yes.
that it was a lot of built up goodwill towards a IP, we didn't call it IP back then,
Mhm.
but goodwill for an IP that had never been really taken serious. And I know this
Mhm.
is a satirical movie, but Batman was also a little bit winky about some stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
it was ultra serious in a funny way that adults could understand and enjoy, but as kids, we were like, "Wow, he's the coolest." I mean, Batman's the coolest thing ever. Joker's the coolest dude ever.
Right.
We saw it straight faced, and then you watch that movie now, and you see Tim Burton was playing a little bit.
Right.
There's a similar thing going on here, is that little kids could look at this straight faced and be like, "Look, it's Barbie and Ken," but also there's some satirical elements to this, and hopefully it's not too heavy-handed, and that's going to be something that is going to resonate with people of all ages, because you're going to
Right.
have, people who are in their 60s who used to play with Barbies going to see this movie, but you're
Right.
also going to see little kids, like we said earlier, who don't get the jokes but still just want to see Barbie.
I mean, I think now as we roll into our official predictions for this weekend, it feels like the marketing has fully captured the adult audience, has captured the adults who don't go to movies that often or haven't gone a really long time. The Barbenheimer meme has worked.
Hmm.
Kids are obviously going to go because the awareness is through the roof and it's
Yeah.
Barbie and it's the biggest, property for little girls that's out there. So kids will go, but I think the degree to which kids beg their parents to take them this weekend could be the difference between this movie making, 120 to 140 or it getting to 170, 180. Because if the
Yes.
kids are as crazy for this as they could be, that's going to be what pushes this into a range that beats Doctor Strange 2, that gets to 180, 190 and is the biggest opening that we've had in years, sans Avatar or Spider-Man No Way Home, 3 Spideys. So that's going to be huge. And I think the kids thing is going to be more of a story as we go into the next few weeks and look at the legs of this Barbie movie, because kids movies do leg out really well. And if the Barbie movie plays like a kids movie, then we're talking about a situation where Barbie could get to $1 billion worldwide, which is, we haven't gotten to the opening yet, but I think if this is a kids movie and you see what Elemental kids movies leg out really well, then Barbie's got a shot at being $1 billion baby if the kids really get excited about this. So we'll see. But Clayton,
Well, also it's sub 2 hours, which thank
yes,
God. I mean, it
yes,
really should be an hour and 30 minutes. Let's just be honest, but it's sub 2 hours, which is a rarity for movies nowadays.
yes, yes, yes. I mean, you even have these Disney Little Mermaid type movies that are pushing or going over 2 hours. So the fact that Barbie stayed under 2 hours, we'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah. And
Um,
speaking of Little Mermaid, I mean, women have been very underserved this whole summer. Little Mermaid is probably the only thing really specifically for them. Other, I guess you could say, Joyride.
right.
But I
Yeah,
mean,
there
I
were no
feel like
hard
that was a little
feelings.
bit
Yeah.
too raunchy for the general public. So this is going to be, yeah. I mean, ladies will be out in force.
Yes. Yes. So, Clayton, is there anything else we need to go over before we give our weekend predictions? Here's one thing I do want to throw out there because, of course, you are on strike. You are a member. You are a member of the Screen Actors Guild in bad standing. You haven't paid your dues in years, but
Yeah,
you're still on strike with them.
yeah.
And there was a lot of controversy this weekend or this past week about Universal Studios cutting down a tree, apparently, so that the leaves of that tree would not provide shade to the striking actors who were striking outside of their studio. So I want to get your take on that. You were last week on these airwaves proposing some dirty tactics from the actors that you guys should start throwing raw eggs at studios and at studio heads and just throw raw eggs in general. So now the studio has cut down a tree so that there is no shade for strikers. Where are you
Um,
on that?
Let me take a page out of Ron Perlman's book here. And you're not the only one who can cut down trees. All right. You're not the only one who can take away shade. There's plenty of ways to lose trees, if you know what I'm saying. And so if we know where you live and you have trees, then maybe that shade could go away too.
Wow.
That's what I'm
Powerful.
saying. You take our shade, we take your shade.
Wow. All right. So that is from SAG representative in bad standing, Clayton Gumbert. A message to studio executives: watch your trees. Watch your trees. You cut down their trees, and the actors might be coming for your trees for your shade. So thank you, Clayton, on that official statement in bad standing from the Screen Actors Guild. So let's move on now to our official top 5 predictions for this weekend, for Barbenheimer weekend. Clayton, do you want the honor of going first or second? After that powerful statement, I mean, the ball's in your court.
I think I need a rest after that. Why don't
Okay.
you take a shot at it?
All right. So number 1 this weekend is going to be Barbie, and I think it's going to do $184 million. I think it's
84. Okay.
184. Oh, that got
Okay.
you. Listen,
Yeah.
I have been sky high on this movie for months. For a year probably. We've been having screaming matches at BOHQ, throwing chairs at each other, dangling each other over ledges, different times you had my feet dangling me, different times I had your feet dangling you, all over this Barbie opening. I've been high on it. I got to go high. I'm going 184, sky high. Let's see if this does, how nuts this could get. Number
Okay.
2 is going to be Oppenheimer. I don't think Oppenheimer gets to the Inception number, but I think it beats Dunkirk because it gets boosted by the Barbenheimer meme. And so I think Oppenheimer gets to 56 million. I
So
think
you're
this is,
low on Oppenheimer because you've been low all year on it.
well, I mean, I think this is high in the sense that I'm predicting this to be his second highest opener that's not a Batman movie. Nolan's second. And listen, this is Cillian Murphy, great actor. Predicting that a Cillian Murphy star is going to get to 56 million, that doesn't feel like I'm low on the movie. To me, this
Well,
is
Nolan's the star here, Pat. I mean,
Nolan
you're
is the star.
saying you're
Sure.
making. I mean, don't talk about Cillian Murphy because he doesn't matter. What matters is Nolan. You are making a statement about Nolan's star power, not
Yeah.
anybody else's.
And I think this is a statement in defense of Nolan's star power. I think this
Okay.
movie getting to 56 million is a really good opening. When, listen, again, there's another movie where a month ago the tracking was like 30 to 40 or so. It was in that range. So I think it's gone up and up and up, and I think it gets to 56. We have not said the name of this movie this entire episode. I think this shows how much this movie has fallen off the radar because of Barbenheimer. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 opened last weekend to a $54 million 3-day. I think it's still good, and it is so out of the zeitgeist right now because of
Yep.
Barbenheimer. But I still think it's going to hold. I think this is a movie that plays to an older audience that doesn't get out there right away. And it's still got a lot of premium screens. Even though Oppenheimer came in and took the IMAXs, Mission Impossible is going to get its showings in the PLFs. I can't predict anything lower than a 50% drop for this movie, or, a worse drop than 50%. So I'm going exactly 50%. So I think Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning does 27 million this weekend. I think it does exactly 50%. So that's number 3. Number 4 is going to be Sound of Freedom. And
I mean, is there any way that it beats Mission Impossible? It's
it's
possible. I mean, it's possible this movie could make more than Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning this weekend.
I mean, I've got to predict the drop this weekend, because if this movie doesn't drop 50% or more, then is this movie going to end up outgrossing Titanic?
Well, Pat,
then
people don't have to go. It's a movie where you could buy a ticket and not have to go.
but
So, yeah, of course, I could sit at home and buy 30 tickets to this movie
but
and
you
save a
still have
bunch
to,
of kids and it's going to make more than Mission Impossible.
But you still, the thing is, we say how there's, you're able to buy tickets and not go, or people don't end up going, but the people who buy tickets still have to spend money out of their bank accounts to buy those tickets. The scam, and of course we say scam lovingly,
Yeah, lovingly.
movie studios need to have more scams to get people to buy movie tickets. But people are buying these tickets, whether they're buying because they want to go, they're buying for someone who's not going to go, they're buying it just as a represent kidnap kids, whatever the reason, they're buying the ticket. So I just don't see a world in which this movie doesn't drop this weekend,
But
because
dude,
how
listen,
long are people going to keep buying tickets? And listen, and we've gotten some people written into us trying to say we that we're discounting this film and that people want to go. Yes, people want to go see Sound of Freedom. It is a movie that definitely there's an audience who has really gravitated towards, and they like this movie, but the movie has to drop. It has to drop. So I think it's going to
I don't
drop
think it
into
has to,
the
but
teens.
I'm interrupting your top 5 and I apologize.
So I'm just going to say it made 27 million last weekend. That was up 39%. I think this is the weekend where it has a 50% drop and makes like $14 million. So that's where I'm going with Sound of Freedom at number 4.
Wow.
And then number 5,
Do it.
you would
Do it.
you
Do it.
would think
Do it.
Insidious, because
Do it.
Insidious made 13 million last week, but I'm going Elemental. And then
Yep.
I think if Elemental comes in number 5, we're going to have to talk about how Elemental is having a really great run. And so I'm putting it at number 5 for the weekend. I think it jumps over Indy 5 and it jumps over Insidious Red Door. And then I think we've got to spend a couple of minutes talk about the Elemental run if that happens. So that's my top 5.
I was going to do that too. I think that's the way to go. Indy is the deadest of all of these movies. It is
Yeah,
so dead. It
it's
is
so
so
dead.
dead. And Insidious is going to be what, at 60 something, 70 after this weekend. I mean, it made its bones and people, Insidious did a great job. So
Oh,
no shade on Insidious.
Insidious has already made 58 domestic. So after this weekend, it'll be in the mid 60s. That's a hit. But yes, it's a horror movie and its third weekend. It's going to drop a lot.
Okay. So my top 5. Barbie number 1. I mean, doinkest of all doinks.
Yeah.
With these pre-sales, I mean, I'm going over Mario. I don't know if I can go 180 like everybody seems to be doing. Although it feels like that's what the tea leaves are saying. I mean, I'll go 172.
Okay.
I mean, this thing could go 200. I mean, it is one of those things where it just could go so totally bonkers and you could be low on it.
It could. It really could.
But 172 is where I'm going to live. Number 2, Oppenheimer. I'm a little bit higher on this than you. I think it does beat Inception.
Okay.
But barely. I think 63. I'm going to go 63 on it. Number 3, Sound of Freedom. Sound of Freedom is going to beat Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning because, like you said, this movie is out of the zeitgeist. It is not a story. The stories are right now Barbenheimer and Sound of Freedom. And I'll admit, Elemental. Those are the 3 stories. Mission Impossible, the only story you're hearing about Tom Cruise is that he was against the strike because he still wanted to promote his movie.
Wow.
So things are turning for Tommy Boy here. And the other thing, I mean, something that we have to add to this whole conversation about Barbie being one of the biggest movies of the year is that with this SAG strike, people aren't going to be promoting movies. They're not going to be able to for months. Barbie was one of the last movies that could do a full court press.
Yep.
And it's going to benefit from it. So having said that, number 3, Sound of Freedom, because here's the thing, and I'm not saying nobody's seeing this movie, huh? What I'm
Huh.
saying is people are seeing this movie and there are donors buying tickets for this movie. And when I say donors, I'm not saying a regular Joe Lunchpail or Susie Crocheter. I'm saying that it's a benefit to people that this movie do well if they want to see this sort of movie. So if they want to see more of these sorts of movies at the theater, it makes sense for them to put up some money to make this movie continue to be a hit.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right? And there are plenty of people in this country that can't afford a ticket and they are cashing them in. I'm not saying nobody's using these codes. People are using these codes and this movie's being watched by people who couldn't afford to go see a movie.
Right. Right. Right.
So
So
maybe they'll save up for Sound of Freedom too, which is already in the works. It's got to be. So that is my number 3. Number 4 is going to be Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. I think this definitely drops over 50.
wow. So
Everybody's every
could you
everybody's
give
Barbenheiming.
could you give us some numbers then? What do you think Sound of Freedom's going to make, and what do you think Dead
I
Reckoning's
think
going to make?
Sound of Freedom can drop in the single digits. I think this thing could make 23 million.
Wow. I mean,
And
if
I
that
think Mission
happens,
Impossible drops 60.
wow.
Because
Wow.
people want to see Mission Impossible on big screens, and it's not going to have as many of those big screens. Pat, I tried to go and see an IMAX of this during the week, and there was no IMAX in the city for me to see.
Wow. Because they were previewing Oppenheimer for critics, I think.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to go to Lincoln Square and see Mission Impossible in IMAX, and there was not a showing available for me. So
Yeah.
I skipped it. Because if I'm going to see Tom Cruise jump off a cliff on a motorcycle, I want to see it on the biggest screen possible. And if you're not allowing me to do that, then I'm not sitting in a rat hole theater for it.
Wow. Wow.
So, having said that, number 4, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, and then I'm going to do it. Number 5, Elemental.
I got it. I am gonna doff my proverbial cap to you this weekend, Clayton, because you have been a not the bigger man, but you have been a big man in the way that you have admitted that Barbie's going to be huge
Uh huh.
and celebrated that and
It's
that
positive for what we do and theatrical. Barbie and Oppenheimer is keeping our jobs.
yes, yes, yes. And the way that you have placed Elemental in your top 5 for this weekend's predictions, a movie that you ranted, and I say ranted positively because we're
Yeah.
doing great radio and we need rants every once in a while. But you ranted against Elemental and you ranted against the people who were saying it's having a good run, and you were ranting against giving it any plaudits for having good holds in its 5th weekend. And now you're putting it at number 5, and we don't have to delve into it, but I do think that's a sign that you do think there is something to this movie's run right now.
Well, numbers don't lie, is all I'll say.
Okay.
The one thing that doesn't lie is numbers.
Right.
And what we're seeing here is that Elemental has more momentum than any of those other movies that we're looking at.
Yeah.
And yes,
Yeah.
Barbie is a kids movie, but it is skewing more. It's a PG-13 movie, so it is skewing more adult. So there will be little kids, little rats who want some cheese,
Yes.
and that's what that's giving them.
Elemental is closer to a baby movie than Barbie
And
is for
then,
sure.
not to be the conspiracy guy, because there's so much conspiracy going on at the movie theaters, and we want to be talking about something positive like Barbie and Oppenheimer, not conspiracy theories. But there could be a few middle-aged men who have a little bit of money that
Mhm.
are buying some Elemental tickets and maybe not showing up. So it's not just Sound of Freedom. There's a possibility that these Pixar fanatics are saying, well, I can't let my baby die because that's all I have. So here I go. I'm just going to invest in some tickets for this Elemental movie and not show up. So
Right.
I'd like to see some head counting there too. That's all I'm saying.
Very, very good crackpot theory there, Clayton. I commend you for that crackpot theory. So, very quickly, just want to touch on a couple of emails that we got this week. Of course, the great Austin sent us a email, and Austin, we loved everything that you had to say in this email, but I want to cut just to what his predictions were. And I'm going to go to, of course, Austin, you gave us a revised prediction in a second email. So Austin went 180 for Barbie
Mhm.
and 70 for Oppenheimer. So around
Yeah.
where we were at, I went 184. We're all around that number. So the good word here is that Austin is very high in this movie. And of course, he represents a very youthful segment of the audience. He's in his 20s, in his prime. He's in his prime. So he went Barbie number one, 180. Oppenheimer gets a 70. He did have Mission Impossible 7 at number 3 ahead of Sound of Freedom. And he also had Elemental coming in 5th. So we all had that around this. We had the same top fives there. Gonna go to Danny from I Screen, You Scream 4, the number
Number
4
4.
movies. The great Danny says Barbie and Oppenheimer is finally here. No words to describe the most exciting weekend for moving going is here. First off, my predictions for these movies. And Danny went Barbie 94 million, Oppenheimer 63 million. So Danny sent this on Tuesday at
Yeah.
8:50 a.m. Eastern, and I think the Barbie and Oppenheimer hype is just moving so fast that I think Danny
Mhm.
might have been a little behind the hype there. He sent an email in, and then the hype just kept growing and growing. But he does say Barbie will be the bananas winner for this weekend. Okay, so here's what Danny says he's going to do. And one more thing, Pat and Clayton, I do know you guys would love some boots off the ground report. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to record some videos of the crowded audiences in the lobby auditorium for this weekend and send it to you guys, the report of how huge this will be for both movies. He will see Oppenheimer first Friday morning and then Barbie Saturday night if all goes to plan. So should be
And
one of the most.
Danny,
Yes.
can I just give Danny some advice? Do not focus the camera on any kids.
That is good advice. Let Clayton do that.
Yeah,
Clayton will
stop
do
it
that
with
at
that.
his screening.
Stop it with that shit.
Yeah. So Danny, don't do that. I mean, listen, everyone, if you're planning to film at Barbie screenings this weekend, first of all, don't film in a movie theater. It's pirating.
Yeah.
But just know that there are Sound of Freedom moviegoers in a screening room in the same building. So just
Mhm.
be on your best behavior at these Barbie screenings. So, any other predictions we want to go over? We
Well, wanna
got
be your boy Eric.
yes, he went
155 million, says
wow.
Eric. The Barbie online buzz was massive, and I had doubted it would translate, but it's about to be movie night this weekend for a good chunk of those people who are talking about it. Pre-sale trackings make it not too difficult to know this, but I've learned that I only want to estimate that a movie will open well over 100 million if it's a superhero movie or a massive special event. This is a special event,
This
he's
is a
saying.
special event. Yeah,
So
yeah.
multiple times, Eric has been in public spaces over the last month and heard women of varying ages and backgrounds casually mentioning they want to see the Barbie movie. I work at a theater and it's become frequent that when guests pull up their ticket for me to scan, I also see their Barbie pre-sale ticket on the screen. For a meme movie, Barbie's on the opposite end of the Snakes on the Plane Morbius spectrum. Now, the meme is the excitement for the act of paying money and seeing Barbie. It's a massive special event, and my prediction is 155, and I would be surprised if it did anything lower than 120. That is some boots on the ground.
Yes.
Love the looking at the future tickets and the fact that people have already bought their Barbie tickets that far
Mhm.
in advance is telling. And
Yes.
then there's going to be a lot of walk-up business, and the only issue with that is there going to be an open seat for them?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they may just have to can't see Barbie tonight, but you're already here. Why don't you go see Sound of Freedom? We've got some empty seats that you could grab. So that might be what's going on here. But listen, people are going to see the Sound of Freedom movie. We're not saying that these auditoriums are empty. They're full. There's a lot of people going. So I think that is it for this Barbenheimer prediction episode. I mean,
Mhm.
email us at theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. As you can tell, we love reading your emails, your boots on the ground reporting, your predictions. So write us, let us know what your Barbenheimer weekend ended up being. Did you see both? Did you see one? What was the screening room like? Do not take photos or videos at Barbie screenings pointing your camera at kids. Do not do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Let the professionals do it, like Clayton Gumbert. So,
No, what would you say my last name?
your last name is publicly available.
You're such a
So email us the boboyspodcast@gmail.com. Of course, we are YouTubers, so watch and subscribe and like. And what else do you have to do, Clayton? Smash that like button,
ring that bell.
ring that bell on YouTube. That helps the BO Boys enterprise in myriad ways. So ring that bell, follow us on YouTube, watch these episodes there, and subscribe. Of course, follow us on social media at the BO Boys Pod. Wanna BO intern Christopher is killing it with the vertical video clips across both Twitter and TikTok, and maybe more social handles to come. So follow us at the BO Boys Pod across social media, and give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. We have been getting just 5-star after 5-star review, and it is definitely helping new listeners find the show. So keep doing what you're doing. Drop us a 5-star.
Blah blah
Uh,
blah. Love the
blah,
show.
blah, blah, blah. Love the show. That's what we want to see. So I think that's it, Clayton. I think it is time for us to head off to Barbenheimer weekend. So that's all I got.
Yeah. Well, I am very excited to be watching these numbers. There's nothing that I like more than refreshing deadline, refreshing the numbers, and watching these 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 right throughs come through. I
Mhm.
love it. It's
Yeah.
this is a holiday for us.
Yes. Yes. Barbenheimer is the new high holiday for the BO Boys.
Yeah, so it's going to be an exciting weekend. And I don't think there's really anything left to say, Pat.
No,
No, there's nothing. There
nothing.
can't be.
Can't be.
What would there be left to say?
No, I gotta go.
Except for
Oh,
except for until next time.
will
We'll
smell
smell you
you
at
at
the
the
box
box office.
office.
Nailed it.